Isn't she pretty? Okay, I started with okay. Technically, I didn't start with it. We are just going to add a bit of oil to our pot and our pan. This is going to be one pot for the most part, except for the fact that I just realized I forgot to get a pot of boiling water, but I'm not going to cook the pasta in here. So sauce in this whole bit is one pot, but then the noodles are going to be on the side. I don't know why I had to explain that, but I definitely did. So we're going to start with a little bit of oil. Then with the freshest onion possible. If you guys could see my eyes, they are so red and it looks like I'm crying because this onion is so ripe. I'm going to add one large white onion. Hopefully it doesn't make you cry the way it made me cry. Then to the onion, I have about a teaspoon of some fresh thyme that I just picked. I didn't really bother chopping it down that much, so you can see, I mean, it's kind of like just there. Yeah, I mean, it wilts down so much, and the stems at the very top aren't woody, and they're just like super soft, I guess. So they're, I almost said eatable. They're edible, so they will be fine like that. Then, of course, we have to add a little bit of seasoning. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of some salt. Okay, they were out of like can you guys see these big rocks? I finally found them, but they only had like the pre-ground salt. I know that sounds super weird, but they only had pre-ground salt. So I had to get this one and not really a fan of it. Then of course some black pepper. So we're not really going to, or we're not wanting to develop too much color on the onions here. It's just mainly like a flavor booster, an enhancer, and it's also going to help, what's the word for like, add more to your sauce. It's gonna like, what is that word? There's a word for it. Well, I can't think of the word, but it's gonna make our sauce go further. Then we're gonna add some garlic. These are really, really like Sam's Club big size things of garlic. So I think I can only fit one in here at a time. Typically, you guys will see me add garlic, like not necessarily towards the end, but definitely not in the step where the onions are involved. But everything's gonna cook together, and as long as we don't put it at such a high heat where things burn, the garlic will be fine. Then we'll give everything a stir. And if you feel like your pot is getting a little bit dry, feel free to add either a bit more oil, or you can definitely add a couple of splashes of water. It is not going to hurt. Then we're gonna add some other spices. I'm gonna add about 1/4 teaspoon of some oregano. Then I have a little bit of Weber chicken seasoning. This stuff, I get it from Sam's Club. It's super cheap and it is so, oh God, it's just so good. It's like a perfect mixture of, I mean, you can see it has so many different things in there. Rosemary, black pepper, onion, garlic. It's just really good, and it's a bit spicy. Then I'm gonna add a bit of paprika. Remember, just for color, not so much flavor, about what, 1/4 teaspoon? Then the next steps are basically gonna be adding my homemade version of Italian seasoning. So I'm gonna do about a teaspoon of parsley, a teaspoon of basil, and just a little bit of rosemary because the chicken seasoning already had some. Then once again, you're gonna give it a stir. And you always wanna bloom your spices. I talk about this in almost every single video. You want to really enhance the flavor of your spices. It's no good just adding them to, let's just say, like a pot of like bouillon, just kind of there. If you are adding veggies to anything, or you're gonna bump it up, and I just realized I forgot to add some veggies in here. But just bloom your spices. Trust me, it makes the world of a difference. Then the veggie that I was missing here that I forgot to mention, we are going to add 1 zucchini. I just cut it lengthwise and then basically having like 2 long halves, and then basically cutting into quarters instead of half moons, or you can cut it into any shape or make zoodles if you want. So you definitely, of course, do not have to add this. I just feel like the way to get my family to eat more vegetables is just by incorporating them in something that has a bunch of sauce in it. And we're just gonna coat it in all of the flavor. I love how I say you definitely don't have to do it. I feel like, you know, whenever you start a new job and you're like being trained in something and they're like, yeah, so this isn't the way you're supposed to do it, but this is the way I do it. This is what I feel like I'm doing. So since zucchini is mainly water, it's gonna like wither down, shrivel down. It's gonna get very small in the pan. All the water is gonna cook out, and then it's slowly gonna start to pick up all of this beautiful, delicious fond that we have on the bottom of the pot. But now, this is going to be the super untraditional part, and I already know some of you guys are thinking, what the hell, when you guys watch me do this? I have some scallops, okay? I got them at Aldi and they are great, but they, for whatever reason, no matter how much I pat them dry, I cannot get them crispy. It, maybe because they're super small. I don't know what Roman is doing, just wants to talk, I guess. Okay, we had a quick intermission. So these shrimp, I called them shrimp. These scallops, I could not for the life of me ever get them crispy just because they're frozen, and maybe it's just the ones from Aldi, or maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. But since I can't get them crispy, what's the point of even trying and dirtying up another dish? So we are gonna add them straight into here, and that's it. We're gonna coat them in all of this flavor. Now, of course, you do not have to do scallops, and I know some of you guys are like, oh my God, what a waste. But trust me, I mean, I think Olive Garden does this, right? They make like a seafood Alfredo, something. Then, of course, gotta hit it again with some more salt and a bit more black pepper. And remember, season to taste. Then gonna give it a stir. And of course, remember, any seafood really, I mean, of course, the smaller it is, the faster, but any seafood really cooks quickly. So you can see some of them are already starting to turn white, but we're just gonna let it kind of happen in all of the sauce and everything. Then you guys heard me mention that there is a shortcut. What is the shortcut? Pre-done Alfredo sauce. Yes, I'm sorry. Do I know how to make Alfredo from scratch? Absolutely. Am I gonna do that today? Absolutely not. This is such a great shortcut. Obviously not sponsored whatsoever. This is just the one we always get, and then the flavor kind of matters, kind of doesn't. I don't really taste the difference, but I am gonna add this entire thing. So remember, I talked about your sauce going a bit further, and it's because you're adding all these veggies, and instead of just pouring this over pasta, oh, I've seen people just heat up noodles and then just pour this over. Trust me, you definitely want to heat everything together. But having a pre-made sauce like this makes dinner time a lot faster. So you're still cooking. I mean, I consider this home cooking. You just needed a couple of little shortcuts. And then also, look at the color change from that. So it's not just this like super paper white, thick, nasty cream sauce. I'm sorry, but it by itself is not very good. But when you season it and add a bunch of your own things to it, it makes it so much better, even just the color. Even if you were to just, I don't know, add it over noodles, but just put a little paprika or something to make it better, it'll be so much better. Now, of course, there is sauce in this. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this before, that Brad has never heard of the thing where you add water to sauce and like do the whole thing, you know? Let me know what you guys do. But instead of adding water, we're gonna add something better. And what is that something better? Just a little bit of half and half. You can do heavy cream, but to me, it's just still kind of thick. And you can even do milk, but I'm gonna add all of this. There's probably about a half of a cup in here. Then we're gonna add the lid. And of course, you don't have to do this. I just wanna make sure I get, for the most part, what I think is left in here. And it's gonna help thin out our sauce so it's not super, super thick. Then of course, give everything a stir. And if you feel like maybe you added a bit too much liquid and you're like, oh, it's ruined, absolutely not. Because for one, you want your sauce to go further and you want to have more sauce. You want it to be a bit more liquidy. But as it cooks, it is going to thicken up beautifully. So now what I'm gonna do is just kind of scrape down from the sides. Once I scrape down the sides, we're just gonna add the lid. I'm gonna set the timer to 5 minutes. I'm gonna put the heat on low and just let everything finish cooking, let the scallops finish cooking, and get warm. Okay, our sauce is very nicely warmed up. The scallops are cooked perfectly. Everything has like wilted down the way it should have. Let me tell you guys, I was most definitely standing here for about like 15 minutes and I was like, damn, when are these noodles gonna be cooked? I didn't even have a flame underneath the pot, so I'm now cooking noodles. But so the rest of the family is getting the just whole wheat linguine noodles. The noodle type really doesn't matter. And then for me, because we're trying to be healthy, I'm gonna have the Miracle Noodle Heart of Palm pasta. This, you guys can see, it does look like pasta. Brad tried it. Brad doesn't like them, but he's just not a fan of the texture. For me, I don't really mind. Now, don't get me wrong, I only eat pasta with sauce. I'm not like a just plain noodles person, so I definitely wouldn't eat this straight out of the can the way I would chickpeas. But with pasta, or with sauce, I guess, you definitely can't taste the difference. So I'm just gonna have these, and Like, they're like low carb and healthy, and it's just hard to pump, water and salt. Anyway, I drained them. I'm not gonna rinse them because I don't want to add any more moisture, but you can heat them in a pan and cook them up a bit. But I'm just gonna put them in a bowl and pour my hot sauce over it and just kind of, I said my hot sauce, my really nice warm pasta sauce, and then it should be good. Okay, I brought it up a little bit just to make sure it's nice and piping hot. I'm gonna turn that off, and then I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like when we serve. And there you go, a bunch of veggies, and I mean, wow, you can't even tell that it came from a jar. Look at that.